Today we're going to be replacing this old piece of junk with this brand new, upgraded master cylinder. Making this truck stop like a modern vehicle would be extremely expensive, but what if you could make it stop better for only 50 bucks? If you have a 4-cylinder Toyota pickup or 4Runner, then you have a 13/16 or 7/8 brake master cylinder. This, when paired with larger tires, bumpers, sliders, and other off-road gear, results in terrible braking performance. Luckily, this can be upgraded to the 1-inch master cylinder off a V6 truck or an FJ80 Land Cruiser. I opted to go with the master cylinder off the V6 truck. Okay, so what do we have to do to install this master cylinder on this truck? Well, the answer is not much. As you can see here, this front brake line goes to the top port of the old master cylinder, but on the new one, it'll have to go to the side. So we'll have to bend that. And the only other thing is that this plug will need to be spliced in. As you can see, they are different plugs, but that's as easy as just snipping the old plug and soldering the new one on. So let's go ahead and start taking off this old master cylinder, and then we'll get this new one installed. One thing that I almost forgot to mention is that when you buy your master cylinder, make sure that the plug is on the cap and not on the side of the reservoir. If the plug's on the side of the reservoir, you're gonna have to do a little bit more work, and it's overall just easier if the plug is where it was originally. All right, so I do recommend getting a lid or a pan or something to put under this master cylinder instead of just towels. However, I didn't have anything laying around. So the first thing I'm gonna do, and this is kind of optional, is I'm gonna drain this fluid from the reservoir. Now I'm gonna move on to taking off the brake lines. Make sure that you use the proper kind of wrench for this. If you don't use this, you're gonna round off your brake lines. Mine are already a little bit rounded from the previous owner. And once we get it out, we're just gonna cap it like that and like this. All right, and now both the brake lines are off and they're capped to make sure that they won't leak everywhere. So it turns out we actually didn't need a drip pan. We've barely made a mess at all. So now that we have the reservoir drained, we have both the brake lines off and the plug. We'll get this plug out of the way. We're gonna unbolt the master cylinder and remove it. All right, this thing's been in there for 30 years, so it's gonna have some resistance coming out. All right, brake line's kind of hung up there. This one too. There we go. It's out. Before we can install the master cylinder, we have to bench bleed it, and we also have to swap the old plug onto the new cap. And the way that we're gonna do this is we're just gonna snip this off of this one, and we're gonna solder it onto this one. So I'm not gonna go super into detail on how to bench bleed. There's a lot of videos on YouTube on how to do it, and your brake master cylinder will actually come with instructions as well. As you can see, we still have some air bubbles in there. I'm gonna go ahead and let this sit for a second, and let's work on soldering that harness plug. So here's the finished product. I actually don't know if it matters, but I soldered the red wire to the blue and white wire, and I soldered the black wire to the white and black wire. All right, I just depressed the piston and verified there's no air bubbles. Let's get this thing installed. Now that the master cylinder is installed, we have to make the brake lines fit. So it looks like the rear line will actually fit with no issues. However, the front line isn't gonna fit. Because this screwed into the top of the old master cylinder, it won't directly screw into the side of the new master cylinder. So we're going to have to bend this line a little bit to get it to fit. I'm just gonna give it a little bend here. All right, you just twist it like this. All right. That should go. So this is the bend that I ended up with, and I think it's gonna work just fine. Let's get these brake lines installed. The brake lines are installed, and as you can see, the front and rear both mounted up perfectly. One thing to note is that when you're bending a brake line, make sure that you haven't kinked it. You guys probably saw I started off using the right tool for the job, and then I ended up just kind of finessing it by hand. And that's totally fine, as long as you don't kink the line. Okay guys, well that about sums up this video. The very last things that I would recommend that you do is top off the reservoir, reinstall your sensor plug of course, and bleed the calipers. If this was helpful whatsoever, please hit that like button. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to leave a comment. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel and you're enjoying this content, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya.